Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar focusing on the SBIR STTR reauthorization, particularly tips and tricks for navigating new funding opportunities out of SBIR STTR. We'll go to the next slide. I'm really happy to be joined today by our three outstanding panelists, Monique, John, and Xiuling. I'm going to have them each introduce themselves, and Monique, I'll start with you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for your interest today in SBIR. I'm Monique Pond. I'm a team lead and program director in the National Cancer Institute SBIR office. So happy to be here. My background is primarily in government, but prior to that, I was at a small business for several years as a regulatory consultant. So looking forward to discussing.
Thanks, Monique. John?
Good afternoon. My name is John Ujvari. I'm the director of our technology and commercialization program here at the North Carolina Small Business and Technology Development Center. Within the SBTDC, we're a team of 6 that works with early stage innovation-based businesses, primarily around SBIR and STTR funding. I've been with the organization for 25 years and have worked with probably thousands of companies at this point.
Great. We're so glad to have your expertise here, John. Xiuling.
Hi, everyone. My name is Xiuling Lu. I'm professor of pharmaceutics at the University of Connecticut. I'm also the co-founder and CSO of Nami Therapeutics. I will talk more about our company later at the panel discussion, so I would not talk too much about myself. I also have an introduction over there. We'll talk to you there. Thanks.
Great. Well, and we're so excited to have all three of you here to give us some tips and tricks regarding navigating SBIR, STTR from your different points of view of being with the startups that actually apply for these grants or helping those startups apply for the grants themselves or being one of the funders themselves. So really excited for our discussion, but we do have a few logistical slides first. So we'll go to the next slide. We will be sending out a recording of this webinar to everyone who registered for it ahead of time. We'll also be sending out the deck. That will happen either later this week or early next week, so just keep an eye out for that. We do provide copies of this recording and the deck itself on our partner portal, which is available to the tech transfer officers and the researchers at our partner institutions. So this is only available to you if you're at one of our academic partner institutions. For everyone else, we do have a YouTube channel where you can find all of the recordings for our webinars as well. So you can find ways to access both the YouTube channel and the partner portal via the QR codes that are noted at the bottom right-hand part of this particular slide. We do have upcoming webinars as well. As you know, we always have lots of them planned for everyone. On August 19th, we have one on advisory boards for academic innovation operations, and we'll be talking with 3 different institutions that have these advisory boards for their innovation partnerships. In this fall, we're going to be introducing a new series of webinars focused on certain industry areas that are of interest to investors and the startup companies associated with those. And the first one of these will be on data center silicon photonics. So that'll be coming up in the October timeframe. And then, of course, we'll be having back our popular Ask a VC webinar where people can come and ask a couple of our managing partners any questions they have with regards to venture capital, current state of industry, how it works, et cetera. That'll be coming in October and November of this year. So with that, we will move to the next slide. We do want to introduce Osage University Partners to those of you who do not know us. We are a venture capital firm that partners with academic institutions to invest in their startups, typically by exercising participation rights available in their licenses. If you don't know what a participation right is, they're the ability to invest in future rounds of a startup company on the same terms and conditions as other investors. We do have recommended language on participation rights if your institution is not currently putting them in your license agreements. As part of the partnership that the institutions have with us, they share in a portion of our profits, as well as receive programmatic support on tech transfer and academic startups. We're now on our fourth fund here at OUP. When we've made investments, and now I think it's actually over 160 companies in all areas of deep science, with many of those companies achieving successful exits. And if we go to the next slide, it just gives you a sampling of the different companies that we've invested in, the areas that we've invested in across these four funds that I've mentioned. We are always happy to answer questions about our model. So feel free to reach out to me. At the very end of this webinar, we will have the contact information for all of our speakers and myself. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about OUP. So we'll go on to the next slide, which contains the agenda for today. But before we get to the agenda, I do want to note that we encourage questions throughout the webinar. We are here because we want to answer questions. People want to have, all the people on here want you to have a successful experience applying for these grants. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar. Please use the Q&A tool, as I use that to moderate the questions, and we'll ask them appropriately throughout our time together today. If you put them in the chat, it's a little bit hard for me to track. So please use the Q&A tool and I'll be reviewing those. With that, we have three different sections, as I mentioned. Monique will be giving kind of an overview of SBIR, STTR, and resources available, as well as some of the new aspects of the SBIR reauthorization. John will be talking about tips on applying for SBIR, STTR. And then Xiuling, I'm really so delighted that you're here to give a faculty perspective on applying for these grants and how that has been useful to you and your tips on success. And then we'll have a bit of time at the end for Q&A. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Monique.
All right. Thanks, Kirsten, and thanks everybody for joining today. So I am at the National Cancer Institute, and a lot of my slides might be focused around there, but I'll point out where a lot of the information is applicable across NIH, and point out the different places where you'll definitely want to talk to a program director at that particular institute, but I'll point those out as we get into more. So next. So I am very glad to be here today. For those who have been following in the news, SBIR STTR had a bit of a delay this last year, but we are happy to announce it was reauthorized by Congress in April. And so we are very excited to be making awards this summer and having our next receipt date, which is September 8th. Next. So for those new to SBIR STTR, it is a congressionally mandated program. It is mandated that federal agencies with extramural budgets above a certain threshold are required to set aside 3.2% of their budget for small business innovation research, or SBIR. And then those with a budget above 1 billion are required to set aside 0.45% for small business technology transfer, STTR. So I will most of the time just call it SBIR, and I'll explain a little bit about the differences between the two programs, but they are very, very similar programs. So at NIH last year, this was $1.3 billion given to small businesses through these programs, and about 200 million just at the Cancer Institute alone. Next. But SBIR is much bigger than NIH. So here I'm showing the 11 federal agencies that do have SBIR programs. The top 6 have STTR programs as well. So a lot of funding out there for small businesses across different agencies, depending on your technology type and the problems that you're tackling. Next. So here at NIH, we have 24 of the institutes and centers that do have SBIR, STTR funding for companies, and showing there the Cancer Institute. And so some range from quite large budgets of around 200 million down to smaller budgets. So it depends on the institute's overall budget is how you can determine. I get this question a lot, how much money does each institute have for small businesses? And so that's how it's determined. It's a percentage of that institute's budget. Next slide. So just a quick snapshot of our portfolio here at the Cancer Institute. We do have approximately 350 active awards at any given time. We have approximately 10 program directors in the office who oversee these awards, and this is all we do. So we, have the privilege of working very closely with our companies learning about your technology, learning about what stage you're at, and hopefully, being able to help you in the next steps of your projects. Next. So a little bit about the eligibility, how do you know if you can apply or not? You do need a small business that's organized for profit and based within the United States. The federal limit is 400 or 500 employees, but rest assured, most of our companies that we're funding are between 2 and 10 employees, so quite a bit smaller. Next. And the reason why people seek funding is, of course, the money. It is non-dilutive funding. The small business will retain all the IP rights. But in addition, we've heard from companies that it also helps attract additional outside governmental funding. So, providing that recognition and verification of your technology kind of helps you get going in those early stages before you get those larger awards and hopefully some VC funding, along the way. Next. So I want to show the funding phases here, and this looks a little complicated. Next. So I'm just going to focus on the green box there on the left. Most of our companies come in at the phase 1 or the phase 2 stage, not to be confused with clinical stage from FDA, but these are, phase 1 is usually proof of concept work. Early stage here at NCI, our budget is $700,000 which is actually quite an increase for us from $400K previously. So we're excited about that coming up in September. But a lot of companies come in at the phase 1 stage. But we also have phase 2 funding. This could be follow-on funding. Maybe you take your preliminary data from your phase 1 and then use it for phase 2. Or you could come in directly at the phase 2, depending on if you already have some preliminary data. Always happy to talk and meet with you one-on-one to determine, what's the best fit place for you to start. Right now, our phase 2 budget is $2.5 million at NCI. There are other options like fast track, where you apply one application for both phases at the same time, and happy to discuss that more if that's of interest. We have some larger size awards, 4.2 million and 15 million. These are for companies, though, that have already received phase 2 awards through us. So, if that's you out there, would love to chat with you more. But just know that those are kind of down the road for most folks. Next. So our omnibus solicitation is currently open, and the next receipt date is September 8th. And this is one of the areas you'll definitely want to check the solicitation for the institute where you think your technology might land. So if you're not working on oncology, that's okay. I'm sure we have an institute out there if you're in the life sciences that it would fit into. But the max budgets do vary, you'll find, from phase 1 and phase 2. So definitely that's an important thing to check out before you apply. Next. So before I switch gears to some of the commercialization resources we have, I do just want to touch on some changes made with reauthorization. So for those out there who are familiar with SBIR, there were some exciting changes. Congress did approve the program through September 2031, which is exciting. So we don't have to worry about any potential lapses for a while. There is a new phase 2B strategic breakthrough award option that Congress allows. And so this allows for much larger awards. I mentioned the 15 million award that NCI is doing. So if you're a later stage company, definitely come talk to us and check that out. Companies are now allowed to apply directly to phase 2. So if you are an STTR company, you can do that option. And before, that was only open to SBIR companies. And I should mention, so in the interest of time, I've kind of condensed this down a little bit, but I'll just briefly mention SBIR, STTR, the way people decide the max budgets are the same. The way people decide which route to go. Number one, primarily the PI's employment. So if you're primarily employed at a university, then most universities, would require you to keep your primary employment at the university, and then you can apply through STTR. Two, if you need a larger budget, a sub-award budget to a university, maybe you're doing your animal work there at the university. And that is another reason that people would go for STTR over the SBIR route. But it's not like you're on one track forever and ever. We have companies that apply to both, depending on the situation, depending on the project, et cetera. So you're not, fully committed forever and ever to one or the other. One other big change is the limit on number of applications. So there is a limit now of 9 per company per calendar year. And lastly, the foreign risk assessment. This is something all the companies have to go through before we can fund them. There is a change that now companies receive a little bit of information back on feedback if you don't clear that assessment. So with that, I'll touch on a couple commercialization resources now. So if you're listening in, we have what we call our peer learning and networking, our PLAN webinars. And I think these can be interesting to listen to because it's not program directors like myself, but it's actually our awarded companies that have volunteered their time to kind of put together short 10-minute videos on different topics. So if you're at the stage of trying to figure out how to get that first award, writing your specific games page, we've got some videos on that could be helpful. If you're a little bit further along looking at IND submission, we have some of those. So definitely check it out and learn from the other entrepreneurs who've been there and kind of successfully navigated that milestone. Next. So the next 2 programs I'll mention are specific to NCI. And so if you're working on an oncology technology, we have a program called STEP that's meant for people who have never received that first award yet. Definitely check it out. It's a free program. If you're accepted, we are taking applications in September. If you're accepted, then you get help each week leading up to the application date to put together the application. Next. And for our NCI-funded companies that are a bit later stage, we have what we call our Investor Initiatives Program. This is where we help, hopefully, support you as you are making, those first connections with VCs and trying to have those meetings and get those follow-on dollars. If we accept you into the program, then you will get pitch support and funding to go out and start pitching at events. So lastly, I will just end with a few application tips, but I'll leave most of the tips to John. So just a few tips from our perspective. The whole process, it's long. It takes a long time. So there's no way around that. But I do want to just highlight there are 4 required registrations. So you'd want to go ahead and do those. That makes it possible for you to even apply. And so that's not something we can help with or help speed up the time if, end of August rolls around and you have your application ready, but you haven't done those registrations. Next. These slides will be available. So, I wanted to put a lot of links on here so you could hopefully get started in a good place. But definitely check out the instructions. They are very long, so they can also help you with sleeping at night if you have trouble. They are over 100 pages. So, I joke, but, definitely check that out. And then afterwards, meet with us. Reach out with your specific aims page. We're happy to take a look and kind of give you some advice. Next. We do have sample applications. These are real applications that companies have received funding for. So hopefully this will help. I know of 3 institutes at least that have these applications available on their website. So I'm showing them their Allergy Infectious Disease Institute and the Aging Institute, as well as NCI. Next. So we also have a podcast. If you're into podcasts, I think we're up to almost 30 now. Check it out. It's definitely arranged by topic, and again, not just program directors talking, but we try to have CEOs and experts in the biotech field kind of come on and give their perspective of the field. And lastly, I will just end next with, come talk to us. We love talking to people before they apply. These applications take a lot of work to put into, so definitely happy to give you some advice on if you're a good fit for the program or which institute would be the best fit, or what stage. We definitely don't want people wasting their time applying to the wrong phase 1 or phase 2 or anything like that. So that's our mailbox. Like I said, a real person checks it, so you should get a response in a couple days, and look forward to questions and hearing the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Monique. I'm actually going to ask you a couple questions before we move on to John. Can you once again go over SBIR versus STTR, and people are asking about the university affiliation associated with each one of these, and what is open to something that is university affiliated, and is there anything open to non-university affiliated?
Sure. Yeah, great questions. So under SBIR, the PI's primary employment needs to be with the small business. So at least 50% employed at the small business. So like I gave the example, if you're at a university, most universities require your primary employment to be with the university. And so in that case, you would not be eligible for SBIR. So there is the STTR program, and you would apply under there. Another difference between the two programs, I mentioned the larger subaward to the university. You can have a subaward to a university under SBIR. It's just much smaller percentage of the budget. So sometimes, depending on how much funding that you need to send to the university, you would do STTR. Okay. And then the last requirement, you are required to have a university partner under STTR, but you are not required under SB. That is, up to the company and the project. Yep.
Okay. And I think you kind of just answered this, but I'm still going to ask the
Sure.
question directly. And there's actually two parts to this. If the PI retains primary appointment at the university, can their company still apply for an SBIR if there are other team members at the company and the sub to the university is within the allowed amount?
Yes. So if you pick a PI that's primarily at the company, yes. And we definitely have companies that like I said, do both.
Okay, great. And then you may not know this, but which is easier to obtain, an SBIR and STTR?
That is very interesting. Yes. Well, there are no pay lines anymore at NIH. So I used to talk about the pay line differences. But I would say it's just a little bit of a different flavor. STTR companies tend to be a little bit earlier stage, perhaps a bit higher on novelty or innovation, brand new target, et cetera. Then maybe SB. SB tend to have a little bit more of the company structure built out, or team. But again, these are kind of, I'd say, qualitative. And, you should really go with, in my opinion, whichever one makes sense for the company from the budget perspective and your PI perspective. But I'm open to, other thoughts from the panel on this one as well. I'm sure people have different perspectives.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much, Monique. John, we'll move on to you. We'll go to the next slide.
All right. Well, thanks, Monique. So I've been with the SBTDC for 25 years and have worked with lots and lots and lots of companies that have been very good fits with the SBIR STTR program, and many that have not been. So I'll start by saying that an SBIR proposal, and when I say SBIR, I'm meaning STTR as well. These proposals are a unique mix of business, product, research and development, and that's something that's often a very difficult document for somebody to write that hasn't done one of these before. Oftentimes, technologists, experts in their field, are very adept at writing very research and development specific documents. But when it comes to business-minded content or product-minded content, it gets a little bit difficult. So next slide, please. So where we start to work with clients is getting them to think about what is the end goal. So our favorite friend as a kid, Porky Pig, they always showed this, at the end of a show. This is really where an entity that's applying for an SBIR needs to start is what is the end goal of this research that we're trying to accomplish? Next slide. So the end goal is always going to be the commercialization of the particular innovation that you are developing. And what that simply means is you get, or your business, getting that product or service out to a buyer, out to the market. And that market really needs to have a significant need for whatever that innovation is that you're developing. So thinking about the business and not necessarily only science, thinking about product and not just R&D are very important concepts when you're starting to develop a phase 1 and a phase 2 proposal. Next slide. As Monique mentioned, this is a long-term process from day one to actually hitting the proverbial submit button. So we recommend starting at the very least 12 weeks before the agency deadline, and oftentimes more than 12 weeks. So if a client comes to us and says, "Hey, we're looking," it's mid-August and they're looking to submit for the first week of September, it's just too late if they haven't done a lot of the legwork already. So start the process early. Registrations and a number of the things that I'm going to talk about momentarily take a lot of time. Next slide. So given that commercialization is the ultimate goal of the work that you're trying to accomplish, you really need to understand the customer of the product or service that you're developing and understanding the consumer of the product and service you're developing. So the customer is going to be the purchaser, the person that's actually handing over money for your product or service. The customer, who could be a very, very different population, the consumer is the user, the beneficiary of that. So if you're thinking about a medical device, the purchaser might be a hospital system or an insurance reimbursement mechanism. The consumer could be a physician or medical office, and adding on to that, the beneficiary is of course the patient. So you've got these very different levels that you need to understand what their needs are and what their pain points are. And determining this information is a process, what we call customer discovery. Customer discovery is whereby a technologist or a small business goes out and queries these customers, consumers, and beneficiaries and determines what is on the market right now that they're using to fulfill their pain points. What would they like to see if a new product were to come to market? So customer discovery is not a process of selling, it's a process of learning. And all of this data really supports many of the components of a phase 1 and a phase 2 SBIR proposal. In significance, innovation, R&D. Significance is all about what is the ultimate need for this innovation. The innovation section is about what is new and novel compared to the competitive solutions on the market today. And when it comes to R&D, when you know what your customer is looking for to solve their pain points, that information is going to help guide you in terms of what R&D needs to be completed in a phase 1 SBIR. Next slide. So financial planning is a very important component when you first start down the path of looking for funding for your business. and the innovation associated with it, you really need to start thinking about how far SBIR funding is going to take you down the development pathway. And thinking about once our SBIR funding is used, what's next? What are what are the additional funding mechanisms that we should be planning for? Is it going to be additional SBIRs? Is it going to be equity funding? Is it going to be partnership funding? So we call this helping a client to understand their funding roadmap. And it's always very important to anticipate what is that next funding source going to be, and start planning accordingly early for that next funding round. Next slide. So we like to think of the agency, NIH and NCI, for example, as being the customer of your proposal that you submit. So it's really important to understand what that agency, what your customer of the proposal is wanting to see in a strong proposal. So it is a long, somewhat tedious document to read, but it's very important to read that solicitation. Read it again and read it again, making sure that you've dotted all of your I's and crossed your T's. The last thing you want to do is spend 12 weeks of effort and you've missed certain components in the instructions, and your proposal gets thrown out simply because you didn't, do some perhaps administrative things that were outlined in the proposal instructions. Another thing that you can do to understand the agency that you're submitting to is reviewing previously funded proposals. So Monique mentioned that there are a number of proposals that are available on the NIH website. Other agencies have those available as well. A plug for SBIR.gov. Great place to review previously funded proposals. You're actually able to see all of the abstracts of the proposals that have been funded in the past. You won't be able to see the full proposal, but the abstract will certainly suffice. And then speaking to program management staff is always a very good idea. Next slide. So a lot of the companies that we work with that have remained in business for an extended period of time and ultimately have developed a menu of products and services that they've taken forward into commercialization have used the SBIR programs time and time again. Really going into this type of funding mechanism shouldn't be looked at as being a win one phase one and a win one phase two, and you're off to the races and you're on to equity funding. That generally doesn't happen. So it's often a good idea to think about how can we break our innovation, this kind of this broad area of innovation that we're trying to further develop. How could we break that into multiple phase ones and phase twos? You can potentially submit multiple proposals to the same agency. You can submit them to different agencies. Some are considered grants, some are considered contracts, but we won't get into the differences right now. I will point out that National Science Foundation is sort of a catch-all agency, and a catch-all agency means that they have interest in a wide variety of technical innovations. NSF likes to be the first funder. So if you submit to NSF and you say that you've already gotten an NSF phase one or phase two proposal, or a phase one or phase two from another agency, they're probably going to deny you to get an NSF funding because they like to be the first. So keep that in mind. And again, the strongest companies make the most use of SBIR. Next slide. There are a lot of available resources to you. In addition to the agency-specific resources, such as the ones Monique mentioned, many agencies have similar resources. They carry out webinars and in-person events. There are a number of national conferences, which I highly recommend people new to the program attend. It offers sort of a one-stop shop for meeting one-on-one with program managers from many of the agencies. Uh, Most states, so I'm in North Carolina, our focus is working with North Carolina-based companies, but most states have support mechanisms whereby we'll provide proposal reviews, trainings, et cetera. And again, speaking with existing and past awardees is also important. I'll mention that there are, I'd say over the last 10 years, there's been an explosion of proposal consultants that have uh, come out of the blue. Proposal consultants are entities that will actually assist in writing your proposal along with you. They do charge a fee. Often it's a 7%, the 7% fee that you can include in your phase 1 and 2 proposal is kind of the funding that the proposal consultant will take if it's funded. So it can be very expensive. Some states have matching and incentive programs. They call them phase 0, phase 1, phase 2 matching programs. So definitely check your state to see if they offer additional funding resources such as that. And if you don't have anybody else review your proposal, um, the one person or persons that you should is a technical reviewer, somebody who's in a similar technical field as you. Ask them to put their business hat on, think product, think commercialization, and give you kind of an unbiased proposal critique. So if you spend any money, spend that, spend 500 bucks, $1,000 on getting a technical review. Next slide. Oftentimes, if you submit a phase 1 proposal, you are not going to get funded. So just keep that in mind. It's not the end of the world. Most agencies will provide written review commentary. That written review commentary can be used to bolster your resubmission. So think of those things that they're mentioning as little golden nuggets. You might think of them as lumps of coal. You might not agree with their review commentary, but those are the things that the reviewers did not like about your proposal. So utilize those to submit a stronger proposal the next time around. All right, and my final comment is a word that over the years we have had a multitude of SBIR awardee panels that we've done in person, webinars, et cetera. And the one word that comes up from all of those panelists across my 25 years of doing this is you must be perseverant. Again, you're probably not going to get your first phase 1 awarded. Don't get bummed out. Try again and keep pushing along. This is definitely a marathon. It's not a 100-meter dash. So be in this for the long haul. All right. Any questions?
Yes, thank you, John. I'm going to ask you one question. We have a whole bunch of questions, but I'm going to save most of these till later. But one question, because you mentioned, hire, the potential grant writers who can help you, et cetera. The question actually was about using AI in writing the grants, such as formatting grammar and paraphrasing, rather than obviously writing the full grant itself. But your thoughts on using AI in writing the grants?
I'm sure agencies are going to frown upon any kind of use of AI, but I think AI is a writing tool and helping to um, be a source of layout, being a source of have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I think
Hmm.
it's useful. I think it's
Yeah.
useful, but do not simply uh, try to teach AI to write
Got it
proposal.
right then. Yes. Okay, excellent. Yes. Perhaps that proofing, et cetera, may be helpful too.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, John. We will move on to Xiuling.
Unmute myself. Great. Well, it's really helpful to hear from John and Monique about all the resources and tips for this STR SBR program. What I would do is just to share a bit our journey with all these grants and our experience in learning. As mentioned earlier, I'm Xiuling Lu, serving as the CSO of Nami Therapeutics and also a professor at the University of Connecticut. If you could move to the next slide, you will see a little bit more about myself. And I would like to emphasize that my work has been focused on formulation development, optimization. Especially, I'm interested in all kinds of nanotechnologies that could target difficult to treat cancers. And we also use imaging tools to improve pharmaceutical product quality. Not all these, in addition to thinking about the product, we also look into the manufacturing and the process development. So around all these, it's put in mind how to make a product. And before I joined UConn in 2011, and I started my life at the North Carolina, Chapel Hill. At UNC, we started one project which is trying to target the peritoneal metastases next. And then what we did was just to use one nanoparticle, a type of nanoparticle. We found the very particles very specifically accumulate to tumors. So that let us not only publish paper, we thought more about this. And then I moved to UConn and I applied grants and I got funded by American Cancer Society and NCI. Um, the more we do experiments, next please, and then we had more observations in terms of all these results. Every time you do, you see the same thing that most of injected dose got to tumors, which was very surprising to us. So we want to dig into more mechanism, but funded through those grants. In addition to that, we want to really make an impact in patients. So that's why we founded this company. I'm one of the co-founders together with two others as Nami Therapeutics in 2018. And then the next, we submitted a grant as a NCI STTR phase one. I saw a question about phase one, phase two. When you don't have a lot of data related to commercialization or product development, you want to just to start with the phase one. So it's more proof concept. So we applied and we got the second round. Like John said, keep trying. So after resubmission, we received that grant. Our focus for that was to do a preliminary tox evaluation, and there's some additional optimization for formulation and dosing. Since we are able to meet the milestones for this phase one, next we want to submit application for phase two. That is additional. It's much more money, is $2 million at that time. And then we were able to use that to support our comprehensive GLP tox. So we have already completed a GLP tox study. And in addition to some more preclinical animal studies and dose optimization prediction for human. And more importantly, we thought through more regulatory perspective to make IND enabling activities and talk to consultants and prepare for IND. So that stage next is we are preparing for IND submission, and also we like to get resource for GMP manufacturing. So this is kind of the path that we went through from the ideal or idea stage and down to the current stage. what we developed, next slide, please, and then is a tumor-specific radiopharmaceutical for treating peritoneal metastases. Next, please. As you probably know that peritoneal metastases is very, very hard to treat. And one of the most striking examples of ovarian cancer, there are 21,000 cases identified annually, but pretty much 70% already developed this peritoneal metastases. And you see those tumors spread in this figure and all over the places. It's really hard to get any treatment to all the tumors. So there's only 29% 5-year survival and no effective treatment for it. And next, please. And then our solution is XLNT1. XN1 is a tumor stroma targeted holmium-166, which is a radioisotope and radioactive nanoparticles. We deliver that through intraperitoneal injection, and there's no biologics, no targeting ligands, no receptor dependency, but repeatedly showing very specific tumor accumulation. And this isotope can be, has high energy beta, can be used for killing tumor cells, but it has also gamma rays can be used for imaging. So we can use for image-guided treatment and dose selection as well. More importantly, in terms of manufacturing, we like to highlight a lot of technology we developed. It's easy to think this is very novel, but when you get to commercialization, you have to consider the product manufacture and the quality control and whether you can repeatedly get the product the same way. So handling radioactive material is a very big hassle for radiopharmaceutical product development. And our approach is use stable isotope as a holmium-165 loaded particles can be manufactured under GMP condition without handling radioactivity. And then we can store that as shelf for 2 years. And when there is a request from hospital, and then we can just take that vial, go and put it into reactor. This nuclear reactor facility reactor can get to a neutron flux and then irradiate this isotope become to radioactive holmium-166, and then it will be going through a resuspension, suspending into a liquid for dosing. So this is our approach next. And then we have shown in clinical animal studies that on the figure left, you see that really predominant tumor accumulation. On the right, you can see that we treated those tumors with, in the peritoneal space, right? So we did IP injection, and not only this treatment eliminated all the tumors in the peritoneal space, when later we re-challenged the tumor mice with a sub-Q tumor implantation, there's no new tumor growth. So that means this already stimulated whole body immune response, which inhibit tumor recurrence. So with that, next, we are looking at this technology is not only just one product, it's a platform. So when you plan your product, you want to make sure you only not only looking into one single entity or element, the pipeline product is important for VCs. So we can use that for primary indication, ovarian cancer, and expanded GI peritoneal cancers. But also we can use this technology for other types of cancers and in combination with other treatments, which make greater than $15 billion of combined addressable market. So the next is if you look at our composition, our team, we have 3 co-founders. Dr. Jay and me were the initial patent inventors, and we connected with a business expert. We all have our strength, so that working together into this business development, and we recruited Alan Parr as experienced industry or expert who retired and now is part of very critical team members. So behind us, actually, we are having our clinical advisors and business advisors, as well as lots of consultants, help us with the regulatory perspective and clinical trial planning, so that we are having a very good, solid trial one design with Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. We have completed our GLP talks with the known toxicity, and we have received the feedback from FDA based on our pre-IND package. So all these were supported by our phase 2, SBIR phase 2 grant. I just want to say that's very critical, helpful for us. Next, please. Along the line of all these, you have money to fund research, but you also have some entrepreneur in mind. Entrepreneurship development is also important. After we found this company, we participated in the Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, the CCI summer internship. We got our first bucket of money, is $15,000 for a company to do business development. We learned much more value in this because got our understanding about business and talking to other VCs. And then after we got the NCI phase 1 grant, we were lucky to be selected as NCI's first cohort for this industry mentoring and assistance program. And that's for a year. It was tremendously helped our business development. So we worked with our mentors closely with the regular meetings and online, offline, and take advantage of their network. So it really learned a lot how to pitch, get your deck polished and pitch with others. We also were selected as to participate in the Investor Initiative program, and we were able to attend the RACI meeting, pitch to many company VCs and other sponsors. So along the way, next is, you do pitching all the time, and it's not only just to talk about your ideas, but also take any advantage of resources to get this feedback and advice. Many people you talk to may not give you money, but can give you very valuable advice. So that's what we learned a lot along the way as well. The next I would like to share is some of our learnings. It's still, we are in the process of moving our product into clinic, into commercial space. What we learned is science is very important. Yes, you have to be able to show the solid science, and you're confident, and you have a good faith on this product. But it's really just half of the journey to a successful product, because we also need to care more about first, manufacturability of your product, and more importantly, commercialability. That means whether you have product market fit, whether you have really a good potential profit gaining to convince VCs. Most VCs or in pharmaceutical companies will look at more later stage. They want to see you have de-risked a lot of your other elements. And so that means they want a clinical trial data. That is really what we call the value of death, because you need money to get to clinical trial, and they want data in human. So this value of death can be really bridged and greatly helped by SBIR STR grants. So that's a really big value to us. And to investors, the team is really important. They want to look at, you have a qualified team, and your team is committed. You have time commitment, and you have mind commitment to this development as well. So that just means you really have to be prepared for a substantial time commitment. You're doing at least as a faculty member, is our full-time job, serving as a key person in a company as also another full-time job. It's hard to get a stranger to invest. So getting all kinds of networks, utilize your friends, family, and other rich individual is helpful. So that's critical to get some known network to secure initial funding. Um, and last but not least, I would like to share just what I learned. I always have, in the academic setting, you think about your data, you think about your science, and I always have been educated by our business partner because I usually would say, um, scientifically, you can't say anything 100%. You always give it a little bit space because you don't know there's something and predicted, or you may not have demonstration on that aspect. But once you have a single sign of doubt, your MVCs sensed about this, they will have big concern. So it doesn't mean that you're trying to hide anything. It's more of the language you use. You don't want to show that you don't have confidence on your technology or your product. So that's like I've been educated a lot by our business partner. So that's pretty much all right now what I can think of, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I'll try to
Yeah.
share my experience. Yeah.
So there is a question from the audience. What were the substantive changes? You talked about this a little bit on the last slide, but what were the substantive changes in your commercialization between your first SBIR grant and your phase one and your phase two? And you talked about some of the programs that were in resources that were helpful to you, but I'm curious about like what were the differences between your first and second funded SBIR proposals?
In terms of application, you're after you finish your phase one, so basically the key is you already reached all the milestones and deliverables that you promised for phase
Hmm.
one, which is critical. And then you have a good plan for getting to the next critical stage, which to us is IND filing. So that is, what are the elements will lead you to IND filing and what are the IND enabling activities critical. So in terms of application is you want to get those put into your application saying this phase two, I want to complete this GLP tox study, which is most important for IND. And then you have CMC aspects and you have a clinical trial plan. You should have a trial design. So all these are critical elements, which is really very different from the phase one stage. Phase one is more concept, proof of concept, a little bit preliminary data, and showing, okay, you have enough to move to the next stage.
Great, thanks. And Katie, if you want, you can go to the last slide that just shows the contact information, and then we'll actually take the slides down in just a minute. But I'm going to ask one more question. So we have a couple minutes of questions. We'll actually stay a little bit afterwards because we have quite a few questions still to go through, but we understand that people often have to log off at the hour. But the video will have all of the questions that have come in answered. So please feel free to reach out. And then Katie will also put in the chat a link to our survey. You also see it as you are leaving the webinar itself. We really appreciate your survey responses. We base a lot of these webinars on the survey responses that we get from you. And so just going off of what you were just talking about, Xiuling, and this may be actually a question more for Monique, but you can let me know who should answer this. And you talked a little bit about this, but the question was how much emphasis should be on preliminary results reported in phase one versus phase two applications, and how much impact do the preliminary results impact the chance of funding? So Monique, maybe you could address that first.
Sure, yes. So I do see sometimes applicants at the phase two stage that focus a lot on, we completed fully these three aims from phase one. And absolutely, you need the data, but we're really just interested in the data. So, that's awesome. It was funded through phase one, but honestly, if it was funded through state matching funds to your phase one, or if it was funded from whomever, an RO1 somehow from your academic lab. Like all of that's fine. We just look at the data and the results.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mhm.
John, a question to you, and it was about actually these registrations that need to happen. And you talked about them and that you need to set up a certain amount of time, et cetera. Monique, you mentioned there are 4 different registrations that need to happen. But John, what are these registrations? And like how easy are they? And where should people go to understand how to do them? You're on mute right now, John.
SBA registrations, agency registrations, et cetera, et cetera. So some are some are required to be done first, which will then, once they're accepted, then you can move on down to the others. Are they rocket science? Absolutely not, but they're just governmental bureaucratic things that need to be done. So not a big deal, but start the process early.
Yeah. And Monique, I saw you just put in a link to the 4 registrations required by NIH in particular. Having gone through this process before, yes, there was a surprise to me because I didn't know the first time we did something like this about everything was needed. But I will say that reading through everything like is super helpful. It does explain everything. But as Monique said before, it's a lot to read through. So if you have any questions, reach out to people who've done it before. They can help you usually get through everything that is you need to do. Okay, so next question, Monique, can SBI or STTR funding be used to cover past cost reimbursement to a licensor, for example?
Yeah, great question. We do have what is called TABA funding. It's technical assistance funding. If you go to the instructions and just do a keyword search, technical assistance, you'll find a list of, what can and can't be included in that. And then I put a link there just now on, again, there's a big list of, yes, it can be included, no, it can't be included. So I think that's helpful. But people often use their TABA funds to pay a lawyer fee who's putting together some of the help with IP. So that's a
Great,
great use.
Yeah,
great. And
those also just add from my experience, I know that those can be paid, but you have to have your company or that agency listed when you apply. So just be mindful to have those. Otherwise, if you want to change the individual agency or entity, then you have to ask for permission.
great, thank you. That's really good to know.
Definitely
Um,
easier to have it up front, the name or the company letter of support.
yeah. So this next question was, and I think it was before some of the things actually that Xiuling talked about the differences between phase 1 and phase 2 funding. This person was asking more about the differences between phase 1 and phase 2 and really understanding what, what should be applied for on phase 1 versus phase 2. I'm wondering if you all could just give a little more clarity on that, and whoever wants to go first on this one.
Yeah.
First, yeah.
Sure, happy to start the conversation. So, again, this kind of goes back to which institute are you applying to at NIH? I have heard that there's kind of differing levels of expectations. So I can certainly give you some examples for National Cancer Institute. The phase 1, we expect that people are coming in with some lead compounds, but not necessarily your clinical compound or identified if you're doing a therapeutic, but you will have animal work by the end of the phase 1. So, it is early stage, but in the realm of development, that can be a little bit later than some companies. So I think John mentioned, NSF and kind of the preference to be the first. And, I definitely, encourage that if you're a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, especially you consider the budget and the phase 1 smaller budget is meant for proof concept. Some of the primary data you want to select and then collect after that, you can make a leap for the next stage. So I think it's more towards first if you have very, like Monique said, selected and lead or not, if you want to optimize a formulation so that you can focus on the formulation to the next stage, then you should go with the phase 1 first, and then phase 2 is very kind of targeted, selected, and then you want to go to IND enabling with the CMC qualification and all these animal tests for tox study. So,
Um, there's a question that came in about other funding opportunities that are maybe coming in from, I guess, non-US government agency fundings, and how much we're seeing of those kinds of opportunities for these, early stage kinds of grants. John, because you work with academics, I thought I'd just ask you, I mean, have you seen many other opportunities coming in and filling this area. Because I know that, for example, when the reauthorization wasn't there, like the people were like, "Oh, this is," people were just very bereft, right? Because this is such an amazing opportunity for early stage businesses to have this type of funding from the government.
Yes, we certainly have not seen an influx of other funding sources outside of SBIR or STTR, whether they be domestic or international. SBIR has been and probably always will be the largest source of early stage R&D capital for small businesses in the world. Certainly, a lot of other countries have replicated the program, which is great to see from an innovation standpoint. But we still certainly are the best. And you're right, without SBIR in play, there was a major gap in funding for 6 months.
Great, thank you. Um, Another question on the proposal themselves. Should the specific aims on elements of FD should the specific aims in the application focus on elements of FDA approval, such as GLP, GMP production? Monique, have you seen that would be a major focus in
Actually,
the
yep.
application?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Xiuling was saying, the IND enabling studies we see in phase two, the whole, phase two budget won't get you there, but you should kind of prioritize your aims and do them strategically to get hopefully a portion of them covered, and hopefully put yourself in a situation where you could apply for another phase two, as well as start hopefully meeting some outside investors too, because those studies are expensive with cancer models for sure.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, any possible use of AI in the future by the agencies themselves to evaluate proposals?
There's a great question. And I can't predict the future. Currently we don't have the pay lines at NIH. We are still going with peer review, and then the different offices, like for example, my office will kind of look at those peer review comments and make funding decisions based on those.
Okay. Can foreign CRDMOs be used in SBIR as STTR grants?
No.
No. Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Um, for branches requiring company CMMC compliance, when should the company implement their compliance protocols before submission or before award receipt? Any idea?
So so there are certain things that you should do at time of application versus time of award. And this would, I believe this would be one, definitely talk about it, your plan, have it ready to go, but, could be something, sometimes it just takes a long time. I mean, 8 months, 9 months later, before you might receive your notice of award. So I'd put that in the category. If you're in the category of starting your business and, you need to have a facility, physical place for your business, this is another one. Talk about it in the application, what you would do upon award. And then, if you're selected and right before award, you can actually put money down, move in, all of that good stuff. So good question between the differences that we have.
Great. And so before I'm going to ask you each for a kind of a last comment, but before that, I'd like to just note that someone actually wrote, oh, sorry, there's one other question. If we are selected, when will the funds be available? How long does that take?
Yeah, 8, 9 months from time of application. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the last comment was actually someone who's been on the call and really have found this very useful to them in their application process, et cetera. They had mentioned that they would really like to connect with current and past awardees of SBIR, STTR. Monique, I know you had pointed out some resources for people to review past applications, et cetera.
Mhm.
But the idea of building a community around this, especially for time entrepreneurs, was something that they mentioned as well. So I don't know if you have a place to point them or if this is an idea that may be possible too.
Yeah. I think, John mentioned that, anything that's been funded by the federal government is publicly available knowledge. You can find the abstract, you can find the company name. So maybe connecting with some people in your area locally, or also using that information to connect, maybe not so geographically local, but, someone in your field. And then I'll just put the link to the plan webinars we did, just because this is a series of companies. They're in the oncology space, but all different types of technologies and companies that have very willingly, provide their time and expertise to have their company, kind of name and information out there. So, they might be a great place to start.
Great. We will pass, just in case people missed some of these links that Monique has put in, we will provide these links in the follow-up to everyone when we send out the recording and the decks from this webinar. So I'd love to end with just kind of your final pieces of advice for people who are taking this journey to hopefully procure an SBIR STTR grant. And John, I'll start with you.
Well, two things. First, think long term. Again, this is not a let's sit down over the weekend and write a proposal and submit it. This is a long-term engagement. You have to think business, you have to think science simultaneously. And there are a lot of resources out there, both in state and federal. Utilize them. They're here to help.
Great. Thanks, John. Xiuling.
I guess I would just say, don't be afraid if people say no to you. In the same way as grants applications, the same thing is we apply grants, we got all kinds of responses all the time, and similar to VCs. But as long as I like what John has pointed out, perseveres. So you just keep trying, keep doing, and with your faith on your project and product. Make sure that's your end product, and then put your foot on it.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you so much. And Monique will end
Yeah,
with you.
I'll just, echo everyone. It is a long process. It's a long journey. I'm putting a link to I didn't talk about success stories, but just to say it can happen. It's a long road, but it can happen. Illumina, I think most everyone's heard of Illumina. Their technology began as a university spin out, and they had funding through SBIR. So, we're here to help. Come talk to us. Thanks again for your interest.
Yeah, well, and you all have been so helpful to everyone today, providing all this information. And I hopefully you gave a lot of both information, but also encouragement for people to go down this road. And thank you all so much for taking the time to do this. Hopefully people will also be following up with you to ask any further questions they may have. So thank you to our audience for being so participatory today as well. We really love all the questions and your suggestions. And we wish everyone a lot of success in their applications for SBIR STTR. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.